So who do I have to blame for forcing me to watch this movie?
Oh, boy. Okay, so in full disclosure, this week's movie is The Secretary.
Your choice. Or
yes. Actually, it's Secretary. It's not The Secretary. But anyway.
It's just Secretary, and it's your choice.
My choice, which I very nicely allowed a listener recommendation for my choice instead. And now this was recommended by multiple people during the Dark Knight podcast episode.
For what reason?
Because you openly stated that you find Maggie Gyllenhaal unattractive.
So
and
it's about...
many people felt that you needed to watch this movie before you really made that decision. But the one that stood out was Steve Hutchinson, because he posted it on our community Facebook page.
Okay. And
that's the only comment on the community Facebook page. So, I mean, like, it's pretty glaring. So if anybody wants to go to the community tab, there's only one post there. And it's him saying to watch Secretary. And he says in it, thank me later. So I gotta ask, are you thanking him? Do you find Maggie Gyllenhaal attractive now? Have you been cured? Like,
No, I honestly have not.
I mean, okay, I'm a girl, so I can't really... I like her. I think she's cute. Like, I think she's, like, you know, home girl, girl next door type. You know, I think she's cute. I don't know that I would say, like, she's one of those girls that I'm like, oh, wow, like, she's gorgeous. Like,
no, it's...
There's certain girls you look at and you're just like, wow, okay, that's just... Jennifer Aniston,
flawless.
I mean, you can't, like, you walk up to anybody and be like, do you think she's pretty? And everyone's going to be like, yes, I do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just undeniable.
So it's one of those weird things where... Spoilers for people watching this. You see all of Maggie. Like, the whole...
I will say, given what the movie's about, which we will talk about, they really did a very good job about not making this all nudity. There was only one scene that I can think of that really had any nudity in it at all.
Which, to be fair, wasn't even necessary at that point. Like, they did this whole movie without any nudity. They had to put it in at the right end.
It was to show vulnerability, because both those characters were opening themselves up to each other. But we'll get to that when we get there. But anyway, so the movie is Secretary. I'm Shay.
I'm Tyler.
And this is Cinematically Correct. Should I do the brief synopsis?
That'd be a change. So, yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so, brief synopsis.
Brief synopsis.
So this movie is about Maggie Gyllenhaal, who is Lee Holloway, and James Spader as Mr. Gray. Yes. And he plays a lawyer, and she is a woman who just got out of a mental institution. And
for self-harm,
and she ends up looking for a job, and the secretary is posted in a newspaper, and she happens to be really good at typing. Like, she got an award for it. She's really good at it. I don't believe she had really any schooling or anything like that. Well, she did go to typing school, but I mean, like, not college or anything like that. I am a little confused as to when this takes place, because they type on typewriters, and the movie came out in 2002.
Yeah, so they definitely had computers in 2002.
Well, yes, because I was in high school, did all of my homework on computers. So I really don't know. I tried to find that on Google. I could not find it. But anyway, so basically it's the relationship between James Spader and Maggie Gyllenhaal growing from a secretary to a dominant submissive relationship, then into eventually a marriage, is basically the brief synopsis.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it was longer than my normal brief synopsis, but...
Well, I had to add in there that I wanted to say when it took place, because it's very important that she's a typist. That becomes an important part of this, because if she was on a computer, the whole error thing wouldn't be really a thing, because, you know, you have, like, the red line that pops up underneath it. Like, there's just...
Well, it's a red line instead of a red Sharpie.
Well, true, but it's also way easier to correct, so I just feel like it wouldn't have worked. So maybe that's why they used the typewriters?
That has to be the reason. It was just to facilitate the having to print it out, hand it over to be proofread, and then fix it.
Right. That bothered me a tiny bit, because I kept thinking, when did this take place?
The 50s. But not the 50s.
Right. So as we learned in the Night Tale episode, anachronism apparently bothers me. So that did bother me.
It definitely bothered me in this movie.
Like, I kept saying...
It didn't fit.
But when does this take place again? Yeah. She had a cell phone and all those things. But wasn't there a rotary phone somewhere too?
Yeah.
I believe there was. So
at the desk.
So
she had the rotary phone as her office phone.
I can't, but it's fine. It's fine. So anyway, I guess we should start by talking about the characters themselves. Because,
okay. So Lee. What did you think of Lee?
What did I think of her as a character?
Yes.
To be honest, I didn't like her really. And the thing was, I felt like she was a character that I should feel bad for because she obviously just came out of a mental institution. She was dealing with self-harm issues. But I don't feel they gave her much of a good character arc. I mean, she did grow in her sexuality, and that was really interesting to see. Like her getting stronger and all of that.
I didn't connect with her at all either. I didn't like her as a character. I didn't like really any of the characters in this movie, honestly. I didn't have the ability to connect with. And
I know this is going to make me sound like a bad person, and I don't mean it the way it sounds, so take this with a grain of salt. But I felt like I needed more of a backstory to really understand what she was going through, because I do understand her father was an alcoholic. So I believe that is why she dealt with self-harm issues and all of that. But they didn't really give you like a lot to go on. Like, he was an alcoholic, but they didn't really say like what they went through, how long he had been an alcoholic, was there any abuse in the family. It seemed like they had a pretty decent home life from the little bit they showed. But I mean, they just didn't give me really much of anything, so I didn't feel connected to her. It's not that I didn't care.
It was kind of just thrown in there to give the brief background, but it didn't feel like it was fleshed out or actually...
Right, like I cared. Like I kept feeling like, okay, I want to know like what happened, like why did this happen? Why did you end up in the mental institution? Like self-harm, I know something to do with she cut her wrist in the sink next to her mom, and then she went to the institution, but that couldn't have been the first, second, or third occasion that something like that happened. She had a whole toolkit. So,
and we saw the ending scene with everything all over.
Right. So I just felt like I needed more connection. And the same for James Spader's character, to me.
I didn't feel like any of the characters were fleshed out for the whole movie.
I spent a lot of time going, wait, though, but really, is he a lawyer? Like,
yes, you did. You spent maybe 20 minutes of this movie going, is he actually a lawyer?
Because when she went into the first interview, she said, so are you the lawyer? And he hesitated. He looked down at his desk and he was like, I mean, yeah. And I'm like, wait, what does that mean? Like, because at first I thought maybe it was like a setup. Like, maybe he didn't really need a secretary. Because obviously they showed like that there was obviously turnover.
Right.
And it seemed like maybe he was like making it up to have people in there. Like, you don't know how the movie's going to play.
And his office was really odd. Like,
it was very strange.
It was like
that very long hallway.
Long hallway with the Asian influence very clearly, and then just kind of like a botanical garden in your office, because that makes all the sense in the world.
Right. And then, so maybe this is me reading into this too much, but so they clearly showed that there was a lot of turnover for secretaries, right? He had the sign made up and he had to keep lighting it up. So obviously that says that that's happened multiple times.
Right.
But from the way the movie played out, this was his first time in this type of relationship, right?
I didn't think that at all. I think that he had that or a similar type relationship with all of the women in his life.
Oh, see, I got the impression, so when she was there, he was like fighting, and he kept going to the gym and doing all that stuff, and he was fighting it. So I kept thinking he kept fighting his urges, and then when she kept pushing, he ended up giving in and just letting his urges go.
Well, yeah, but then his ex-wife, I think it was his ex-wife, I wasn't really clear on that point, was saying something to the effect of, he has these impulses, blah, 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 treasure it, or something to that effect.
Right, like I thought that she knew that he was a dominant and that he wanted that type of relationship, but I thought he hadn't gotten there yet, that this was his first. That's how I read it. The woman before Maggie, you're telling me that was a submissive? Do you remember what she looked like?
Just like a
mom, like a middle-aged mom.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but I did not get that vibe at all. 0%.
Who were you to judge? Like,
no, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, like, I just didn't get that vibe at all.
I mean, that's fair. I figured this was not his first rodeo. Although, having said that, he has to pay out quite a bit in severance and sexual harassment lawsuits, I would imagine.
If this was not his first rodeo, then it changes a little bit how I feel how he treated her.
Yeah.
But anyways, so...
Turns it more into grooming and creepiness.
Really, really great
I don't
way.
know. I don't know. I just didn't feel like that relationship had a whole lot of predefined boundaries beforehand.
Right.
Am I wrong? Like, there was no, like, safe word. There's no worked out agreement in advance. Like, this is okay, this is not okay.
Right. Okay, so before we, like, jump into, like, all of, like, the crazy, like, plot details, we should at least, like, kind of give a little bit of chronology here.
Okay.
So, I mean, we said that she was in a mental institution. We said that she answered a job. When she first gets there, there isn't any kind of relationship. He treats her like an employee. And if I'm being honest, he's really kind of awful to her at the beginning.
Right. And it was the weirdest interview. When she interviews, because the office is in disarray. Mm-hmm. Like, there's stuff, it looks like he's been looted. Like, papers all over the floor. The desk is, like, on angle. The phone's off the hook.
Right, because he had a freak out just like he does later on. Well, that's what I read into it anyway.
I mean, that makes sense now that looking back
that you're processing it. Yeah. But anyway, so they have the interview. It's a very strange interview. The questions he asks, like, do you live alone? Are you married?
Are you going to get
like,
pregnant?
You're not actually allowed to ask those questions in an interview, just in case anybody was wondering.
Actually a crime, which, like, obviously they are. Like, that's
like,
just
if someone
really over the line.
In an interview said to me, are you planning on getting pregnant? I could be like, oh, are you planning on getting sued? Because that's how you get sued. Like, you can't ask me that.
So I don't actually have to work here for any time to make millions of dollars. Got it.
Right. So, I mean, okay, so then they do that. And then it turns into a relationship where she's typing, I believe it's like complaints and things like that because he's a lawyer. And she's making mistakes. And it becomes, he uses a red pen and he circles her mistakes and he gets angry and he's throwing it on her desk. And at first, it turns her to self-harm. She's upset because she's doing terrible. She brings her self-harm tools and puts them in the desk drawer. And he catches her. And at first, honestly, now I may have read this wrong, but at first I thought he was turned on by her self-harming. Now,
probably.
From what I saw later in the movie, I have to assume that's not true. But he was, like, watching, and it seemed like he was getting turned on, and I was getting a little nervous about that.
Well, he did a 180. So, like, he flew off the handle, and at that point I would have been like, you know what? I quit. It's not worth... No, thank you. You're a terrible boss. You're a terrible person. I'm not going to ask for references.
Right.
Because he makes her jump in the garbage for something that he doesn't need anyway.
Oh, yeah, that was gross.
No, that's my job is not worth...
Well, okay, but so you're judging. Now, I will say that in that community, in the BDSM community, if that is something that's agreed upon, that they both enjoy, if they, some people do enjoy the concept of demeaning or being demeaned.
Fair, but I will give you fair, but that was not worked out in advance.
Well, that's my issue. So, I have nothing wrong with if that's something you enjoy and that's something you want to do and you've talked to the person and y'all do your thing. That I don't find anything wrong with that. What I had an issue with is at that point in the movie, well, really in most of the movie, but at that point in the movie, he was doing it as a boss, forcing her to do things because it made him feel good, but he didn't know where she stood on anything. I don't think she even knew where she stood. And that kind of bothered me because she was A, fresh out of mental institution, and B, a person who self-harms.
You don't want to push that person too far.
Right, and he knew that. So I feel like that's kind of taking advantage of somebody in a vulnerable position.
It was a little bit predatory.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that because I really wanted to see the relationship go in a... I mean, I kind of knew what the movie was about prior.
Right.
I wanted to see the relationship go in a more positive way where he, maybe he felt those feelings and he didn't expect to, but talked to her up front. And said, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling, I'm your boss, and I don't want it to be questionable, so I want you to know, and it's up to you to decide if you want to go through this or not.
Right.
But I think they were trying to do the typical Hollywood romance and have it all happen organically.
I guess makes sense, but at the same time, it was kind of forced into this movie.
Yes, it was supposed to evolve organically into the way like a normal
relationship
happens.
Right.
But
you meet at the office, there's some chemistry, and then you just start going from there. But that was
Right. But I mean, I'm not part of the community, so I don't know. I'm just speculating. But I have to assume that in a situation like that, because you are allowing yourself to be kind of at the whim of somebody else, that there must be more upfront discussion. There must be more talk. Because, I mean, if say I'm a submissive and you're a dominant, you're a big man and I'm a small person. So if I'm going to allow you to do those things, I feel like trust needs to be established.
There has to be a lot of trust.
Right. Because otherwise, bad things can happen. There aren't all good people in this world.
Yeah.
So it just, I don't know, that I didn't like that being on a movie, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea and end up in bad situations because they're trying to enjoy something that should be a fun experience and end up being, Dateline. So
well, then there was also the boyfriend through this whole part. So they're doing this while she's already dating someone, which was in there as well.
So we're discussing cheating now.
It was in the movie.
Okay, so we have different opinions on cheating.
Well, so my question is, have you ever been on a date in a laundromat?
No. Nope. Mm-mm.
What would you say if someone took you to a laundromat for a date?
I'm sorry, but that was an epic laundromat, okay? So if you want to take me to that laundromat, I think I'm down.
Didn't it have, like, wine and...
And those tables were adorable, and, I mean, it was really well furnished. Like, I mean, it looked like a bar laundromat. Like, I'm in. So if you want to take me there, yeah, I'm in. So...
I don't know if that exists. I don't
know. So if you guys know, I mean, we live in Massachusetts, so if you find one in Massachusetts, it's even better. But I'll travel for that laundromat. I'll travel, so you just let me know. But anyway, so no. But I didn't like the character of the boyfriend. He was annoying. He got on my last nerve. He was clingy. I don't know why it is, but all I know is the whole time he was talking, I'm like, girl, get rid of that man.
You know where he's from?
I don't.
He is my least favorite character from a movie on the podcast that we've done.
Okay, you're going to do me more than that. Do you know we've done like 52 movies?
We've done a lot, yes.
Yeah.
One of our earlier podcasts,
Uh-huh.
Saving Private Ryan.
Okay.
Corporal Upham.
Oh. So I mean...
Annoying Weasley little bastard.
Yeah, I think his character was the first time I swore in the podcast to say something, Upham. But I'm not going to repeat that, but you can get my drift. But yes, okay, so maybe that is why I disliked him, but he just played the typical clingy, like, those type of people get on my last nerve. Like...
They really do.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually a problem.
Yeah, so I don't think I really felt bad that she left him. Now, should she have cheated? No, of course, she should not have cheated, but...
She also did, like, the worst thing you could do to his mom and take the wedding dress.
That really bothered you. You kept bringing that up.
It was so shitty to do. That was a terrible thing to do to somebody.
Okay, so we didn't get to finish out, but so as their relationship, as their BDSM relationship progresses, James Spader's character, Mr. Grey, decides that he can't handle this. It's becoming too much. It's taking up too much of his time. It's overwhelming. He basically he fires her.
Gives her a $600 check, which is that a lot of money? Like,
I mean, we don't know what time period it was, so you know what? It could have been because they use typewriters. I don't know, but anyway, he fired her, and it was horrible. Just the firing
bothered you.
Yep, I thought it was horrible. But anyway, he fired her, and she ends up with the other man. I wish I remembered his name right now, but I don't. So that's cool. That's how much of an impact he had on me.
Yeah.
But
Corporal Upham.
We're not gonna call him Upham.
Why not?
But and she ends up. They decide to get married very quickly, might I add.
Oh yes,
which to me, maybe I'm reading into this too much.
She was running away from.
It signified that she was not past her insecurities. That, I mean, the need to fill a void with another man so quickly and fill it in such a permanent way showed, to me at least, that she wasn't past her insecurities yet and that she really had more work to do. But maybe that's just me being, I don't know, overly sensitive. But then deciding to get married, she
takes the wedding dress from his mother-in-law, her future mother-in-law.
Right, and then decides not to get married. Runs away.
Well, the mother-in-law did say something really mean-spirited. I guess I was skinnier than you back then.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's what pushed her to run.
No, it was not what pushed her to run, but she goes to the office and then she sits there for days.
Right.
And does all manner of unspeakable things in that dress.
That dress had to have smelled so bad.
God,
so bad. So she stays there literally for days, and when we say stays there, she had her hands on the desk and her feet on the ground and did not move because Mr. Gray told her not to move. So that's what she did.
For 3 days.
Right. And I believe that she did not have food or water or anything in between that time.
You're still processing things you ate previously.
Right, no, but I'm just saying, I don't believe she got anything. I mean, they weren't very clear because they kind of showed it in a very strange way where it seemed like there might have been hallucinations.
Right.
Where, family members came in.
I think the family might have actually come over because at some point it was a news story where there was a camera crew watching the crazy lady sitting there at a desk for 4 days.
That could have been. I read it more as hallucinations, but they didn't make it clear. So it could have been either way. But it was very clear that she did not move.
Yes.
So bathroom situations happened in that dress, and then he picked her up and carried her out.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
I just, love doesn't get me that far. It just doesn't. And then they end up...
I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Yeah. But then they end up getting married, and they show the scene we talked about previously where he's bathing her in a tub, and that's where the nudity is. And
a whole lot of nudity right at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and I think it was supposed to be a vulnerable scene, but the marriage thing, it's like, how did he get to a point of being in love with her when he just previously fired her because the BDSM was too much? Did they have enough time to, fall in love? Because, from my understanding, they can be two separate things. Just because you are into, a BDSM relationship with somebody does not mean that you are in a romantic relationship. They don't have to be the same. So... it just seemed odd. They never talked about love previously.
I think that's Hollywood not understanding the dynamic there.
Maybe. It's just weird because they never spoke about it before.
They're just trying to make it more mainstream.
Right.
With an edgy offshoot.
Yeah, that could be. It was just odd because they never spoke about love in any way, shape, or form before. Not even, I don't know, not even, talking about each other's, lives or anything, in a way that you would fall in love.
Favorite color or, music that you listen to, or the normal chit chat, or things that you're not going to stab someone in the eye with a fork at dinner because they said something that you can't stand.
Right. They obviously bonded because they talked a lot and all of that, and I can see how in a close connected relationship like that you could fall in love. I just wish that they showed how that might have happened because it seemed very jarring to be oh, you're fired, I don't want anything to do with you, to, oh, let's get married. I'm
that escalated quickly.
Yeah, seriously. Just strange. But anyways, that's just how I feel about the movie.
I tend to agree with you on that. We do have a couple clips that we're going to play at some point in this podcast related to people that are in this lifestyle.
Yeah, we can play that now if you want. So, we have 2 people from the BDSM community who gave their perspective on the movie because, neither one of us can really give an accurate...
Yeah, we're not the people you want to ask about this.
Yeah, really. I have a respect for the community, for people who are able to...
Sure, if it's for you, it's for you. If it's something you enjoy, by all means.
Right, and
I just don't have a whole lot of experience with that community.
Right, so I was really interested to know how they felt about it because I just saw so many things that I was wait, what? The safe word, you mentioned, there wasn't one. The consent,
They didn't talk about it at all beforehand.
No, consent didn't happen, and I don't feel...
Even in a normal relationship, you have to deal with what is okay and what's not okay.
Right, and consent as a rule, I don't feel she was even able to give if she did, because she really hadn't gotten past her mental, I don't want to say mental issues, that sounds wrong, but...
mental issues.
I can't think of another word.
There's no other word for it but mental issues.
Right. She hadn't gotten past them. It almost seemed like they were substituting self-harm for BDSM.
I got that vibe too, where she was just moving on from doing it herself to outsourcing to someone else.
Right. And that didn't feel good to me. I don't think that's a norm. I usually, from what, the few people that I've known that are in that community are generally very strong. I've known women and one man. But are very strong people who are very confident in themselves, and she was very much not.
Right.
Right. So anyways, the first clip we have is from a dominant girl. Her name is Molly. I will link her on Twitter if you guys want to check out her page. She's been in the business for 16 years, I believe. So
is it a business or just a...
She's a professional.
Oh, okay.
So yes,
then it
business is a good word.
Okay.
Okay, so that's her clip.
My opinion on the movie Secretary and whether or not it is a realistic view on BDSM is kind of mixed, because I think there are definitely some aspects that are realistic. Her feelings in the movie come off as really sincere, that she is naturally a submissive person, and she kind of automatically goes into that mode being around a dominant. I do think that they portray her as a little bit weak initially, and the fact that she has, like self-harm issues and mental issues kind of makes her come across that way, which I didn't necessarily like that aspect. But really, I think that they do a good job of showing how she gains strength through the relationship, because quite often submissives do grow stronger in their relationship with a dom, or just a dominant in general. They find their strength as a person, and it tends to come off in other aspects of their life. And additionally, I feel like their need to validate their relationship in the movie with marriage, I think that comes off as a little bit unrealistic, because I feel like they're trying to create a normal or non-kink, non-BDSM relationship out of it. And I think you don't need to justify that necessarily with, vanilla marriage or traditional marriage. Your relationship with your dom can be completely standalone, and it's totally healthy that way. And then I guess lastly, really, I just wanted to note that I do think a part of the reason that I enjoyed the movie was that they do a good job of depicting the sincerity and devotion that is often intertwined with that sort of relationship. It's really nice that they kind of went outside the box and made it a normal thing to feel that way and to just openly engage in a relationship with someone in that way, which I think happens more often than not, or more often than people really think anyway. Even on a normal vanilla scale, people tend to take the dominant and submissive roles, and it's just a natural part of our relationships. So those are my thoughts.
All right.
Okay. And then the second clip we have is from a submissive. Her name is Katie, and she was actually featured in Vice magazine, talking about, I believe she mostly talked about 50 Shades of Grey in that Vice magazine article.
Not a fan.
And so, yeah, she gives her opinion on both movies in this clip.
Hello, my name is Katie D, and I am a professional submissive from London, England, by way of Brooklyn, New York. And I was asked to give my opinion on the amazing film Secretary and BDSM relationships. I absolutely adore this film on many levels. It is a brilliant film. I mean, screw Bridget Jones and the like. If I want a sappy romantic film, this will always be my pick. Not that I don't enjoy me some Bridget Jones, but that can be our little secret. Now, is it a perfect representation of a BDSM relationship? That is a tricky question, as like any relationship, dom-sub relationships take on any number of forms. It would be like asking someone who is in a vanilla relationship if any well-made rom-com was an accurate portrait of their relationships and sex life. What I will say is very accurate in the film is the caring that exists between Lee and Edward. What people don't generally understand when it comes to dom-sub relationships is that there is this level of trust and understanding that is necessary. The submissive is giving themselves to their dom, and that is a huge thing. And vice versa, the dom respects the submissive and knows what a massive gift it is to be able to have another human being give themselves over. Also, in the film, she enjoys everything he does and has her do just as much, if not more, as he does. This is also very accurate. A true dom will not enjoy something if the submissive is not enjoying it as well. Now, for the submissive, that enjoyment might be in the form of pain, but believe me, it is still wonderful enjoyment. No proper dom, no matter what the nature of the relationship, long-term or just play, wants to be with someone who isn't enjoying it as well. Another brilliant thing in the film is after things get intense, physically, emotionally, he gives her aftercare. He lets her process and come down, as it were. He understands that she needs time, and he's there to comfort her. This is extremely true and very important, and it's left out of so many books and films on the subject. I should quickly say that I'm saying he is the dom, as that's the dynamic in the film. Obviously, dom sub take on many different forms. People who don't understand BDSM and have never had a BDSM relationship tend to think of it completely wrong. And then they write shit like 50 Shades of Grey and the ignorance spreads. And the next thing you know, housewives around the world are getting themselves off to what is, when all is said and done, just a poorly written book about an abusive relationship. It's that misunderstanding that's so upsetting and why Secretary is so good. I suppose if you want to watch a great film, watch Secretary. If you would like to watch something that's a rather reasonable portrayal of a loving BDSM relationship, watch Secretary. If you are actually curious about the world of BDSM, do some research, reach out, find us Kingsters on social media and politely ask a question or two. Book a professional. We are more than happy to introduce you to things you might be curious about. Most people in the fetish world are very kind humans who would be happy to share with you. And I promise we don't bite. Well, yeah, we might, but if you don't like it, just call your safe word and we'll stop.
All right.
So, I mean, do you want to say anything about how you feel about what they said?
Well, I don't really have a frame of reference for 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay, so 50 Shades of Grey, in my opinion, first of all, is horrible writing. I mean, I think we all agree that it was not great writing.
Well, I've never read it, so sure. I'll agree with you.
However, as somebody who is a English major who is also a terrible writer, and grammar and commas are not my thing, I will say that I still enjoyed just the fun of the book. Like, it's one of those books you don't read to be serious. You're not trying to read.
It's not Proust. It's not
right. You're not reading that. You're reading a fun, light, like beach type novel. Yeah. Like, it's so you kind of know what you're getting.
It's like me reading zombie novels. Like,
I mean, it's
so like when people read it to have fun.
Yeah, so when people take it apart like that, I'm kind of like, I mean, yeah.
It's not what it's for.
Right. So now I know I'm in the minority, and I after listening to those clips, I can agree. I can clearly see I'm in the minority here. But I felt that there were parts of 50 Shades of Grey that were more healthy looking, at least to somebody from the outside of the BDSM community, than Secretary. So, for example, in 50 Shades of Grey, more so in the book than in the movie, but in both, they up front, he refuses to have contact with her, like, at all, until she signs the contract. Now, he does pressure her. She does end up agreeing to do this because she's in love with him, and he kind of knows that. So
it's manipulating someone into doing something.
Right.
So you have she signed the contract, she knew what she was getting into.
Right. So, I mean, that's not great.
That's not a great look.
Not great. However, in Secretary, there was no contract. There was no discussion. There was no nothing.
There's not a whole, hey, I'm about to do this. Is that all right with you?
Right. And in 50 Shades of Grey, there's a safe word. And he is very honest about the fact that he is going to abide by her safe word. In Secretary, there is no safe word. So, it bothers me a little bit. Now, in 50 Shades of Grey, they do end up evolving into a romantic relationship.
Just like Secretary.
Just like Secretary, over the course of a few books. But for me, it felt more organic in 50 Shades of Grey because they were both vulnerable people that had troubled past, but they talked about it. They discussed it. He opened up slowly to her. It took a long time over the course of books. And it was like more of a like, okay, I can understand how this is happening. Now, was it all great and wonderful and sunshine and rainbows? No. And there were parts where you're just kind of like, oh, that's weird. He wouldn't get away with this if he wasn't rich. Right. But it's also a book, and I do make leeways for things that aren't
creative
real.
License and all of that jazz is fine.
Right. I'm kind of like, yeah, that wouldn't fly. But if you look at Secretary and you tried to put it into reality, I think there was a lot of things you would be like, yeah, no, that doesn't fly.
He'd be in prison.
Yeah, so
it's
just so. I mean, I read a million articles about the two of them trying to see what people felt, and by 100% majority, Secretary is a healthy representation of BDSM, and 50 Shades of Grey is not. But from what I said, those are the reasons I don't feel that way. But I mean, obviously, you guys listen to clips from people that are experts. Take their word over mine for sure, but I do want to put my opinion out there because, I mean, that's what we're doing.
I mean, that's our whole podcast, and we're talking about the movie, not just talking about...
Right. I mean, some of the stuff that they bring up is... I wouldn't even know... I mean, they were talking about, like, how the dominant one, Molly, discussed how she didn't like that this turned into a vanilla relationship, I think is the words that she used.
Right, so it went from what is focused on the BDSM side of it to just a normal marriage at the end.
Right. And now, I will say that before she brought that up, I really hadn't considered that much. I mean, it bothered me that it jumped so much.
It did jump, but then it turned into almost a marriage with that as part of it. Like, it's turned into a regular relationship when they have nothing, we know that it is in common.
Right.
She was in a mental facility, she got hired as a secretary, and now they're married.
Right. I mean, but her comment really is what got me thinking about that, because... I mean, yeah, it was a jump, but when you're watching a movie, sometimes you kind of accept jumps like that. Right. But what she said makes a lot of sense, that it wasn't that type of relationship at all throughout the movie. No. So the fact that they went there, I'm not saying it's wrong. Maybe that that could have happened. They didn't show that in the movie.
They didn't show the math. I can follow A to B to C if you give me the B.
Right.
But it went from A to Z.
Right.
And I don't know how you worked it out behind the scenes.
Right. So anyways, I mean, that's basically our thoughts on the movie, as well as some professionals' thoughts on the movie.
Right.
Do you have anything else you want to add to that part?
Well, I have Tyler History Minute.
I meant to the movie, but yes.
I do not have anything at the moment.
Okay, so let's jump into Tyler's History Minute. Let's see if it's going to be as exciting as last week's. What did we do last week for History Minute? It was... I'm trying to remember. It was Bandersnatch. What did we... Oh, we talked about a man who tried to kill his wife.
Yeah.
In real
life.
Off
or push her off a cliff.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have a high bar.
It's not going to be nearly that high. So...
Tyler's History Minute.
Flatulation, which is whipping, for those of you not in the know.
Did you not know that before the History Minute?
No.
Okay. I was just curious.
I knew what flatulation was.
Okay.
Has a long and storied past. One of them I can draw on from ancient Sparta, where young boys training to be soldiers would be whipped for any misdemeanor crimes that they may have committed. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of a competition to see who could last the farthest for the most severe beating. Mm-hmm. Also, apparently there was, in the things that you sent me for my History Minute...
You're welcome.
Thank you. There was a story of someone being whipped with a whip dipped in vinegar. And can I just say no? Nope.
I mean, you're the one that likes vinegar in this relationship.
Hard no. Not in my skin.
But you like vinegar.
Not in my skin being whipped.
What would that feel like? I can't imagine.
Salt, it's like rubbing salt in the wounds.
But there's no wound before you get whipped.
There is after you get whipped.
That's true.
No, just hard pass.
Yeah, so, I mean...
those are the two things that I was able to come up with, which I didn't really come up with, full disclosure. This is another installment of Shay's History Minute.
Yes. Now, next week is a history movie, full disclosure. So
I got that one unlocked. I should be able to figure out something.
He's probably going to have some random story that he just has off the top of his head. But,
I mean, I could go back into World War II because of Corporal Upham, but that seems
No, that seems unrelated.
That seems cheating and not fair.
Yes. So I think we should probably jump into audience asks.
Okay.
But you're gonna have to give me 5 seconds. So if you have anything to fill in the time while I re-pull up audience asks, because I lost it on my phone.
So trivia fact. Mm-hmm. While filming this movie, they got a permit to shoot in the wrong park.
Oh, that's weird for a movie like this.
So, she's walking home from the office, and that whole scene where she's walking through the park, they had to distract the police that were coming to break up the film crew.
That's kind of
while
funny.
they shot the film.
One thing I did want to mention right before we do audience ask, because I didn't mention this and I would have killed myself if I didn't. So this movie is based on a short story by Mary Gaskell, and
I did find that.
Oh wow, I'm really impressed by you. And I wanted to see what she thought of the movie, because she was part of the writers, according to IMDb, part of the writers of the screenplay. But she said she characterized the film as the Pretty Woman version, heavy on the charm and a little too nice. But observed that the bottom line is that if a film adaptation is made, you get some money and exposure, and people can make up their minds from there. So I haven't read the short story yet. I was planning on doing that before, but I could not find it on Google.
Don't care, made money.
Yeah, basically.
Is what she's saying.
Yeah. So if anybody's read it, I'd be curious to know how you think it stacks up against the movie. It came out in 1988 with a short story collection called Bad Behavior.
Now, the lawyer's named Mr. Gray.
It is.
So is that pulled through for 50 Shades?
His name is also Mr. Gray,
Mr.
but
Gray.
I've tried to find out if there's any inspiration
Connection?
taken. And from what I've read, 50 Shades of Grey was meant to be a fan fiction for Twilight, and that nobody has said that there is any proof that there is connection to this movie.
I just find it very convenient. I mean, I'm not saying that there's a connection. I just find it very convenient.
It is. It's interesting, and it's spelled the same. It's Grey, not Gray. So it's interesting, but I mean, then you've got people that are comparing like Avatar and Pocahontas. So I mean,
no, or
I mean, you could list a gazillion. So
fair.
So anyway, so let's move into audience asks. There were actually 2 of them where I responded to the people saying that this would be interesting because of Tyler. So
okay,
I should probably find those.
Audience asks.
This one is from Tifu Podcast. It's Tifo. So I might be saying it wrong. Could it fall into the romantic comedy genre? Maybe not initially, but maybe perspectives have changed since 50 Shades of Grey.
Was it a comedy though?
He said romantic comedy.
I mean, maybe a romantic movie,
but didn't one of our experts call it a rom-com?
She certainly did. So in certain circles, maybe. I just don't feel that way.
I mean, I don't think I would have called it a comedy either. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't a romantic movie.
I'm just saying it's a little bit lacking on the comedy side.
Maybe a romantic drama?
I mean, that seems more in line. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of comedy. Like, the rom-com is both sweet and funny.
Right.
This is just...
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of humor.
There's not a lot of humor. So it's half of it. Halfway there.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure I saw a lot of romance either.
Well, I mean...
I'm not saying that there wasn't...
There's a good amount of lust in this movie.
Well, right. But they didn't really show the falling in love part, which is what I said earlier. So,
right. So I mean, I would say that's also fair.
Yeah, so I'm not really... I don't know. I'm kind of an I don't know. Is there a romantic drama category?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we just created it.
Yeah, I'm not a no. And then, okay, Benjamin Hall. He said, who is a better actor in this movie, Maggie or James? I thought this would be interesting because I know that you like James Spader from The Blacklist, and I know that you did not like Maggie Gyllenhaal in Dark Knight. So I'm curious who you think is better.
I honestly think she's more talented in this movie
Wow. See, this is interesting.
But, I mean, I wasn't struck by either of their performances, honestly. I mean, neither one of them was like, oh, yep, that's Oscar-worthy.
So,
It's not a Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, or insert other person type of movie. Like, it's not... I just was not struck by the acting.
No. So, okay, so I will say that I did some research, obviously, prior to this movie, and James Spader apparently is very well known for having, I guess you can say, kinks in a lot of his roles. One of the ones that came up a lot was Boston Proper, Boston something.
Boston Legal?
Was he in that?
I don't know, maybe.
It was something like that, where he was like obsessed with lengths of legs. I don't know. But apparently he had a bunch of roles in a bunch of movies where he was like that. So apparently this is a very well-known thing for him. And so people thought that this was a good character that followed that trend. I have only ever seen James Spader in The Blacklist from what I remember. Now, granted, I may have seen him in other things, but so I am jaded because he is literally phenomenal in The Blacklist. Like, he plays a sociopath wonderfully. Like, amazing.
Yeah, he kills it in The Blacklist. I think that's a better performance.
Right, so comparing the only two things that I know, I would say that James Spader, to me, did not do well at all in this movie because I'm looking at what he can do. Where Maggie Gyllenhaal, I've seen her in a few other things.
Maybe this was his prep for The Blacklist.
Well, right, so this obviously is an early movie for both of them. Right. But with Maggie Gyllenhaal, I've only really seen her in supporting roles, where this was more of like a main role for her. So I felt she shined better in this than I've seen her in other roles because I haven't seen her in leading roles.
I think this is one of her better acting performances. I haven't seen a whole lot of her acting performances, but...
Right, but as an overall career, who's a better actor? James Spader, hands down.
Well, I don't know if it's just either one of them just immediately pulls you into this movie.
Right.
At all.
Like, right. I agree. I just thought that was an interesting thing to talk about because I know...
we're going to get so much hate for this.
Why?
We're tearing this movie down because...
So I'm not tearing the movie down. I actually enjoy the concept of the movie and I do find things interesting and I did like watching it. It's just... I don't like problematic things where I look at it and think somebody who doesn't know anything about this community, what are they going to take away from this? And some of the problems that I mentioned earlier, I worry that somebody would take away like, oh... well,
this is okay to just do.
Right, like I'm a self-harmer. Maybe I should try something like that. And somebody who does something like that, I could see them going down a very bad path because you will meet people that will take advantage of you, unfortunately. Yes, and I'm not saying in the BDSM community, they could be people posing as that because they know you want that. Right. So it's a dangerous road, is all I'm saying.
There was definitely some things where there was kind of a dark, slippery slope.
Yes.
In this movie.
Right. I wish that they put rules and things up front, which I have to believe that is very common in that community. I wish they'd show that a little bit more in this, just so that safety and stuff is shown as important. Not that it makes it any less fun or exciting, but just be safe because there are some crazy people out there in every realm of the world. There's just...
Yes. I mean, normal dating, you find crazy people.
Probably more of them, to be honest.
Just because there are more of them. I mean, it's law of large numbers.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're into. There's going to be creeps out there, and you need to be...
and there's going to be bad people in all walks of life.
Right,
I think
and
that's
you need to be safe. Safety is the most important thing. Yes. So I think that's why the things bother me so much in something like this. I look at, like, the fact that I have a young sister who I want to protect with all of my heart.
That's the reason you don't get into a stranger's van.
Well, right. I mean...
like, regardless of the circumstances, I wouldn't do that, and I'm a large person.
Right. So, anyway, it's not that I dislike the movie in any way. I just... safety is important to me, and when I don't see it on the screen, it
irritates
worries me.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we are well over time.
Yes,
so do we want to go into ratings?
Sure. Reviews or ratings?
Reviews.
So I'm going to go first, and I'm going to draw a lot of hate because I really didn't like this movie at all.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to like it.
I mean, the music was meh. The story didn't grab my attention, didn't have like the depth of story or the background.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a 6.5, 6.75.
Okay, that's
just
fine.
a shade over whatever I rated Big Trouble. Let's go there.
I don't know what you rated Big Trouble.
don't-
You guys probably remember because it's probably burned into your memory because you hate him for it. So please let me know.
1/4 point higher.
Okay. I will rate it a 7. I enjoy the concepts, and I think I am happy that it showed the BDSM side as a positive thing, which I don't really see that much. But I just wish there was more safety.
So that's actually, we're both well below what people rate it.
What do people rate it?
Rotten Tomatoes has it at 76 on the tomato meter.
Wow.
And 82% audience score.
Yeah, well, that's probably a lot of men who enjoyed the nudity.
I suppose that's probably fair.
Right. And if you enjoyed this movie, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just,
Now, what would you have said to someone else playing the lead female?
No, I did see that Gwyneth Paltrow was supposed to play it. I don't know how I would have felt about that because I just can't picture her playing that role. But, honestly, I don't think Maggie did a bad job.
I don't think she did a bad job. I don't know if I can picture Gwyneth Paltrow in that role.
No, me
honestly.
neither. Me neither. But anyway, we are well over time.
So far over
So
time.
far. We're probably going to hit an hour on this podcast. Pretty close, which is, I don't mean to do. But anyway, so we will do our best to make a much shorter podcast next week. Although it is history and Tyler will word vomit.
Yes, I will.
But anyway, so next week's podcast is on Darkest Hour. Your choice.
It's Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill, I believe.
Yes. So that should be a really interesting pod. Hopefully we will have a few other people giving their input. I'm trying to make that a thing. We'll see if we can make it a thing. We'll try just to get a little bit more voices than just us. But anyways, if you guys have any comments or questions or things you want to say, tweet at us at Cinematically C. We have a Facebook page, Cinematically Correct's listener group. You can email us, cinematicallycorrect@gmail.com. We're there Tuesdays and sometimes Saturdays if we get there.
Well, we were painting yesterday. We painted the living room, so we have an excuse.
Yeah, so we were painting this past weekend. He's saying yesterday, not realizing this comes out on a Wednesday, but...
Saturday.
Yes, we were painting on Saturday. But anyways, we do try to do that, and we will be in the group posting things as they come up that's relevant to the podcast. And if you guys send us stuff, we do try to put it in there as well. But anyways, thank you to Jake at This Music for our intro and outro music, and we'll be back next week with Darkest Hour.